Welcome to the Adapt Performance Podcast, the podcast that lets you delve into the minds of world-class guests all involved in the pursuit of performance. I'm your host, Jordan Webster, and let's get into it. What's going on, guys? Hope you're doing well. So in today's episode, we are joined by Ben Woolliss. For those of you that don't know, Ben Woolliss is a professional K1 fighter and he is transitioning into professional MMA with his debut fight coming up in a few weeks. So I'm currently Ben's S&C coach and have been for the past 8 years or so. I can't really remember when we decided that that was going to be the case. We actually started off in combat sports together. We started on the very same day, and Ben was always head and shoulders above the rest from day one. You know, he just kind of had that talent, and you know, he's progressed a million miles since then. And some of the lessons he's learned along the way, just from making mistakes, but also kind of really honing in on those 1% and those wins, is really, really impactful. And I think he articulates a lot of it really, really well. And he's a really intuitive athlete. He understands his body. He understands more of what goes into performance than just turning up to training. So if you're interested in combat sports, this is definitely for you. But even if you're not a fighter yourself, there is 100% some little lessons you'll be able to learn along the way. So without further ado, let's get into the episode. Yes, Ben, welcome to the episode, mate. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, wicked. Thanks for having us on. Appreciate it.
You're welcome, mate. You're welcome. I'm buzzing to have you. So why don't you kind of kick us off, mate? Give us a little bit of a background on yourself, who you are, what you do, those types of things.
So my name's Ben Woolliss. I'm a professional striker, so kickboxing and Muay Thai. And I'm also about to go into professional MMA. I've been involved in combat sports for coming up to 15 years now. Originally, my athletics started on the track. So back when I was 11 or so, I was very heavy into track racing, long distance. And at the age of 13, 14, I kind of got introduced to martial arts, kickboxing and MMA, and was so engulfed in that I pretty much just left all that behind straight away and dived straight into combat sports and committed my whole life to it, essentially. And never looked back. So and then 15 years later, we're here, and delving into the professional realms of MMA. So
sick. How did you get into combat sports then? What was the transition from, track into combat? That's quite a big jump. How did that happen?
Yeah, so completely different contrast. I mean, I used to do long distance racing and also a sport called race walking, which I don't think you can find a different polar opposite of what goes into a sport than those two. But so I got quite good at athletics and was even offered to go to a junior Commonwealth Games at one point. But at the age of 13, we was in school and there was an instructor who used to teach at the school, and he invited everybody over. And I pretty much went from there. And I'd always had like this fascination for boxing. It started from watching Rocky movies and things. And I've always had this weird thing that I could not just see myself as a world champion. I just knew it was inevitable on my route that I'm going to be at that spot. And this is before I even trained or picked up a pair of gloves. I'd watch the film, I'd do sit-ups in the front room, shadow box and run around the block a few times and things like that. So there was always something just pulling me towards it. And anyway, so I went to the gym for the first time, really enjoyed it and carried on going. And within that week, I was pretty much like, this is me. This is what I'm going to be doing. And then the athletics became a bit more of a burden. So they'd want me to turn up to training. Obviously, you're getting ready for these major competitions. And I just wanted to go practice drilling with a partner, like kickboxing or hitting a bag or something like that. All my focus was in that. And over time, I started to pull away from the athletics more and more to the point where I was like, I just have no interest in turning up to this. And I spoke to my coach and I was leaving it. They wasn't the biggest fan of me leaving just because this all happened within a few weeks. So there was years of practice and competition. to me just walking out the door and going into a new domain sort of thing from there. And yeah, so then first few weeks I was in the gym there, and it just, there was just this pool where I just never wanted to leave. And I'd be training before school, I'd be training afterwards, I'd be straight at the gym. If there was a children's class on at the gym, I'd be in the corner on the punch bag. Once the class finished, I'd be lingering around, bad smell for the whole time. I just wouldn't leave the place. I'd just be there all the time. And that's where it began. And yeah, that same intensity has just been there all the way through for the last 15 years.
Man, that's sick. That's cool to hear. What I guess from the moment you kind of stepped in the gym then, how long was it before you had your first fight?
So there's always kind of things on when you should have your first fight and when you shouldn't. My opinion has two different forms now. One from me as a child wanting to jump in the ring as quickly as I can, and two now where I've spent coming up 8 years of coaching and developing younger athletes in combat sports. So my understanding is from this eager kid who just wants to jump in, didn't care about anything, to me now understanding the process, setbacks, how it can affect people's growth and things like that. But it took me, the first thing I did was an interclub, and I got a big buzz from that. So I had like an MMA interclub, and for some reason, go on, sorry.
What is an interclub?
So an interclub is basically where surrounding areas, like local gyms, will all come around to one gym who will host an event, and you compete against surrounding gyms. But the idea of it is just purely for experience, being able to get in front of a crowd, be able to perform and not worry about the result. So an interclub tends to not have a decision. So you'll go in, you'll compete, and there won't be a winner or loser, which kind of sounds a bit weird when you say it like that, because what's the point of being able to compete if there's no winner or loser? But it's amazing to people to develop and build confidence from that starting point. So that's where I started. But even though there was no winner or loser, my first interclub, I was so focused on winning and becoming a professional athlete that the person I was competing against wasn't able to continue the competition halfway through the first round. I think it got stopped, which again, now from a coaching position, if I was the coach of myself back then, I would have told myself to calm down, because this isn't this kind of environment. And if one of my fighters was to try and stop the person in the interclub, I would have to pull them back and be like, look, this isn't the reason for this. This is all for experience and just ring time. But I was a 13-year-old kid just getting introduced to, I don't know, testosterone in the body, and I wanted to prove myself in front of the crowd. And yeah, and I finished the kid in the first round, and that was my first taste of real competition. So you'll have sparring in the gym where you don't really know what it's like, because you're still kind of friends and you're just practicing. But then that was my first taste of some real competition, and I managed to go in and just dominate the event. And yeah, it was my first real bit of, oh, okay, I can do this. I can compete, you know. And from that moment, it just spurred me on even more. And then after that, I wanted to start getting ready for my first competition. And then we started training for that. It started off in kickboxing. So I got an injury when I was training at the first gym I was at, quite a bad one, for many other reasons that we can get into as we go on, depending on the gym environment and things like that. But yeah, suffered quite a bad injury, so I couldn't do jiu-jitsu or wrestling, and I just wanted to focus on striking. But again, my competitive nature, I wanted to be competing straight away with that. So I must have been, I'd say, 8 months, 9 months in before my first real competition. And that was in a place in Sheffield, at this skate centre arena, this old dingy place. But it was pretty much everybody was having their fights there. So that's kind of just where you got put into that pile. And yeah, I was 15 or 14, maybe just turning 15, and I was fighting a 22-year-old guy, an undefeated kickboxer. He was like it was his fourth or fifth fight, and won them all, knocked people out. 22 years old, and I'd just turned 15. And what an ordeal that was to deal with emotionally, as a roller coaster, sleepless nights, and things like that building up to it. But that was my first encounter and getting ready for a fight for that.
What I guess during that time then, what was kind of going through your mind then? So you've just said, going into a fight with essentially a grown man when you've probably still got a paper round. What's kind of that's I knew it. So what's kind of going through your mind in that time then? How are you kind of dealing with those emotions?
It's a little bit crazy. So where I'm at in competition now, I get a lot of people ask me how I can stay so composed under the pressure. I've walked out into the NEC arena, which is a 16,000 seat arena for the biggest kickboxing organization in the world, Glory Kickboxing, fighting the number one guy in the UK, weight classes above, and I'd walk out like it's a Tuesday morning stroll down to Starbucks, and I didn't think anything. And people will ask how I'm able to conserve my energy and just be able to be quite poised underneath that circumstances. But that took a long time. And this first fight, it's definitely something that's been learned and practiced over and over again. Because my first fight, I remember standing in the ring and thinking, I can just get on a train. I can run out the ring. I can get on the train. I can go home, and it don't matter. I'll never go back to the gym, and nobody will ever know me. And I'll just go back to athletics, and that's me done. So they were kind of the first initial battles. Leading up to it, our coach never told us names. They never told us names or records or any. I wouldn't know that he was 4 or 5-0 until I got to the place and would speak to him or the coaches and stuff. So there's two kind of thoughts on that when someone's early in their career. One, it may suppress that anxiety and the things that, I'm going to fight the guy anyway. So whether I worry for 6 weeks or I don't know anything about it, I'm just turning up to compete. Which one is better? It can be, if you do know you're throwing them into the deep end, then don't tell them, just have them turn up, and then they're going to have a bit of a smoother 6 weeks. But also, is that deep end a little bit, should you be chucking them in that deep to the point where you have to hide the information of who they're competing against? Like, my thought now is I'm developing juniors and amateurs is to slowly build them and not chuck them, because if you chuck them in too deep and they drown, it's real hard to bring them back up again. Whereas if we just give them little platforms and they get little wins, by the time they're at this level, their confidence is matched. It don't matter if they're fighting somebody who's more experienced and stuff. They become a little bit more stronger and bulletproof in their mentality, that they're like, yeah, I deserve to be here. Whereas when you just get into that deep end, you're like, man, I don't know if I can swim here. So I think in that circumstance, it was good for me not to know until afterwards. But looking back, should I have been in a situation where they have to hide information on me, because hide information on the opponent because it's that much of a deep end, then probably not. I would change things like that this way around.
It's kind of an interesting one with combat sports in particular, though, isn't it? Because you've got, like, records don't always mean anything, because there's fights that are getting fixed. You could be fighting a bin man one day, you could be fighting a world champ the next day.
Yeah,
I think you're almost fighting blind a lot of the time anyway. And I think,
definitely.
What's your thoughts on that? How do you kind of navigate a career in that sense, knowing that the numbers that you see are always going to be a little bit, take it with a pinch of salt?
For me, that's an industry thing, and there needs to be more of a database or a collection site all the way through grassroots, not just as a professional. Even in professional kickboxing and Thai boxing, good luck knowing anybody's real record. There's no official database, even now. Someone could tell you they've had 10 fights as a professional Thai boxer, and there's no way of tracking it. Maybe YouTube videos or footage that they have. But as when it comes to an actual database, nothing. So as it goes down and further down into your grassroots levels, you're just playing anyone's game. I mean, I've had experience of that myself, competing lots, to the point where I thought I was fighting somebody of the same experience level, and I speak to them after the competition, and they'd be like, "Oh, I've had 60 kickboxing fights," and I'm like, "Oh, I thought you had 4 K1 fights." They're like, "Yeah, but I had 60 kickboxing ones," and I was like, "Okay, so what? Because the rule set's different, that it don't matter." So you kind of get into these weird lines where people are like, "Yeah, 20 Muay Thai fights, but it's only 1 kickboxing fight, so I'm going to fight someone who's had 1 kickboxing fight." It's a little bit crazy. I've also had it with juniors, which I really didn't like, because these kids are 9, 10 years old. Their confidence is so fragile. We put them in as a 1 fight and 1 fight experience. So our competitor has had 1 fight and theirs has had 1, and we expect it to be an even playing field. We see the kid in the ring, composed. You can just tell in somebody's movement how confident they are. And I knew the second that this kid stepped into the ring, I was like, he's not having a fight. No way. And he demolished our kid, hurt him, just dominated the whole thing. And I spoke to the junior after, and I said how many fights he had and stuff. He said, 15, 16. But their coach, he'd just come off a bad loss and wanted to build him up. So he lied about the record. So he could fight someone lesser experienced to rebuild him. Where at a junior level, I just don't find anything positive from that, to be honest. But again, it's how can you track a junior's record or a grassroots record? That comes down to an industry thing where we need to be able to create a database where every competition that happens, the results go somewhere, and you can be held accountable for every step of the way of who you're fighting and if you're a coach, who your athletes are fighting. So then things are fair, because this has happened to me even for a professional. The same thing where I was talking about, where I've had 2 kickboxing fights, fighting somebody who's had 2 kickboxing fights, but I fought a lad from maybe Romania, and I spoke to him afterwards, and I said how many fights he had. He said 2 in the UK, and then it was like 40 plus in Romania, and I'm like, okay, this is, we're just playing a crazy game at this point. And from that kind of time, I had a big shift in my mentality with competing, because I was like, I need to be ready to fight anybody in the world. Like, I need to come into this fight that I could be fighting anybody, like a 60-fight vet, world champion, don't matter. I need to bring myself up to that level, so then there's no surprises. And if I do fight someone of my own experience, brilliant. Then it's going to be an all right night. But if I do fight someone who's completely, we shouldn't be competing against each other, in my head, I am ready to compete with them. And things started to level out a lot more from there. And I started to make a lot of big jumps in my career from then, because I would be fighting people a lot higher up than me that I shouldn't be able to reach and compete against. But because I had, 1, the mental strength, and 2, the nads to be able to step up and fight these people, then I was able to make bigger jumps. Whether that's, again, a good thing in a development for a career or not, it's kind of questionable. But in my mind, I was always ready, and it's kind of built a good bulletproof mind that I don't care who I compete against now. I'm just I'm ready to prove that I'm where I'm supposed to be.
It's just kind of going back to what you said there, like that mental switch. We had a guest lecture for some of my online adapt athletes, and it was a guy called Hugh Gilmore, who's a sports psychologist, and he works with some para sports, powerlifting, Olympic lifting, those types of things. And the whole topic was centered around dealing with setbacks and bounce backs, and what is an optimal mindset, and all those types of things. And one of my key takeaways from what he was saying is essentially just control the controllables. Like you can have anxiety about what everybody else is doing until the cows come home. It's never going to stop. But what you can control is what you do, because like you said, records, all those things, you cannot control it, and it's only going to make you worse. And one of the ways I guess you can kind of explain it is, don't be a passenger in your own fucking journey. Drive the bastard. Like, it's your stuff. Just make sure you get your shit done. It's cool to hear that, mate. And I think I've seen that switch in yourself. Yeah, I've seen it
Yeah.
in you.
So I think there's definitely that, and there's a point where 100% take control of your own journey because nobody else is going to do it for you. But there should be a secondary thing from a coach. If you're involved in a sport where there's a coach, the coach should understand those little improvements and those little wins and understanding your development and being able to guide you. I think the coach should have more of an input than just, okay, this is how you throw a jab, keep your elbow tucked, extend the shoulder. It should be also, okay, this kid's a little bit more experienced. This kid's don't deal well under pressure. Maybe if they are going to match him, we put them on a small show where there's not big lights, there's not big things like that. Or you've got a kid who strives under the lights, but doesn't like the approach. You've got to understand all the athletes individually and know what makes them tick and know how they perform, and then life becomes a lot easier. But on the same thought of that, the athlete should also definitely be able to take control of all those things and should be whether they're good at it or not, they should be working against it, because your mindset in your head is the most important bit when it comes to competing. So you could be 10% physically ready. I've had fights where I've been injured, I've not been able to train for weeks, I've been in hospital, but I know in my head I'm able to beat the person that I'm fighting, and all I'm thinking is just get to the fight, get under them ropes, and you know you can win. Whatever happens after, it happens. You can just deal with your injuries. But if that's the other way around, if you're 90% physically ready in every aspect, but you're only 10% thinking, maybe I can win this, that doubt at every moment will come over and swallow you. So as soon as there's an exit, you'll think, oh, I don't really think I'm ready for this moment. You're walking out, you're like, should I really be here? They start hitting you, and then what happens is you can feel that there's an exit. So you're like, if you feel like this is all too much, there's an exit. And if you're not strong in your head, people will take that exit. And I see it coaching all the time. I see people who I know, because I'll know both fighters, the scene's pretty small. And I know if they were to spar in a gym, things would be so equal and it'd be a great match. But because one can't deal with the pressure and one can, I'll see one take the exit. Maybe they'll get kicked a few times in the leg and they'll say, my leg's gone, I'm out. That's their exit route. Whereas if you spent a lot of time developing your mental strength in those situations, knowing that you're the baddest motherfucker to be able to walk through them ropes, even if it's like your third fight, you've got to believe that you can take on anybody in the world. And that person in front of you is just an obstacle that you've got to get through. They're faceless. It's irrelevant. And when people have a mindset like that, then it becomes a whole nother world for what they're striving for, you know. So I think it's definitely important, one, to have a good coaching background and people that you trust in and you know that they have your best interests in their heart. But then also, okay, regardless if they do or don't, I'm going to become unstoppable in my own training and my own head and take accountability for all them things, you know.
So my next question is based on that then. So you kind of gave us a little bit of a history lesson on your story, and you kind of pointed out that even before you really got into combat sports, you always knew you'd be a world champion. You always had it in you, you know. So you could almost say kind of born with that instinct, you know, born with it. And then obviously you've had coaching throughout the years. Do you feel like, you know, that nature versus nurture thing, can anybody be a fighter? Can anyone go in and do a really good job? Can you be coached into being a fighter if you don't have it there? Or do you think it is just a genetic thing that you've kind of just got?
Well, I think fighting in combat sports in all is a tricky one when it comes to nature and nurture. And if you're in the right coaching, obviously there's going to be a lot of factors that help you. It could be that you was born within walking radius of a world-class coach that you just gel with. It can be that your parents have the money to be able to send you off to great trainers here, there, and they'll put all the work into you. They understand what's needed to be done and they're going to help you. You could take all these things into consideration. And it could also be someone, I mean, myself grew up without those things, but I was going to become undeniable through my work ethic and my mindset, knowing that I'm just going to get there regardless. Like, I'm just going to keep going. And I'm going to get there at whatever stage it is, I'm going to get there, or I'm going to die. And I've hit that stage a few times, but I'll just keep going. But there's a thing that comes down to fighting where it's not like any other sport. So it's not tennis where you've got to keep going and keep hitting and get through that. Don't get me wrong, all sports have a great mental aspect to them all. To be able to compete at a high level takes an insane amount of discipline, commitment, sacrifice, mental fortitude, everything. But when it comes to someone inflicting physical pain on you, there's a different switch. So there's athletes and there's fighters. So you can have someone who's incredibly athletic. They're super flexible, they're super strong, but maybe they're a little bit weak inside their head when the going gets tough. Whereas a fighter may not be so technically sound, but they can just weather anything and they can keep moving forward. So depending on where they came from or not doesn't really matter, because if the going gets tough and one can't handle it and one can, then the one who can is gonna come through. So if you look at something like golf, where the variables are so small, you can understand the wind, you know the distance from here to the putt, everything is kind of controlled. Whereas, so if a good golf player is in their tournament, you betting chances are that person's going to win that tournament. Now, in fighting, if you have somebody who isn't that technically sound, isn't that great, but has been putting in ungodly work, their cardio is insane, they know that nobody is stopping them that day. And you'll see this all the time in major sports like fighting competitions over the years, that there's a super underdog, that they shouldn't even be in the same conversation as this person. And they'll come out and they'll win. And they'll win by knockout, or they'll overcome something. Because in fighting, you can just weather a storm and you can just be tenacious and just keep going. And if you can do that, there's always a fighting chance. And I guess that's where that can even come from. So it's a difficult one. You can have all the cards stacked in your favor, definitely, and it can help you progress into being a great athlete. But being able to put that fighter in someone, I don't know. It'd be hard to say it's either there or it's not, because I've had a few athletes that have been able to switch around a little bit and be a bit stronger. But could you translate that to a world stage? I don't think so. I think it's either it's in you to be able to be like, I don't give a fuck what's going on, what's hurting me. My nose is smashed, my eyes gone, I'm still coming forward. So they'll never look for what I was talking about earlier, where there's an exit and people can take it. They'll set fire to that door. They'll burn the boats and they're going. It's like, I'm here and this is what I'm coming for.
Real quick. Yeah.
Fucking nightmare.
That's cool. Yeah, it's interesting what you say there. I was listening to the Joe Rogan podcast on the way home yesterday, and he ended up going on to Anthony Rumble Johnson and how he eventually left the sport. And what he was kind of speaking around was Anthony basically said, I'm an athlete that can fight. I'm not a fighter. You know, I can fight and I can do it, but, you know, it's a different thing. And I just thought that was really interesting that you brought that up as well.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you will get athletes and you will get fighters, and they're two different kettles of fish. If you get an athlete that's a fighter, then the world's their oyster. You know, they'll go off and do whatever they want to do. Then you're getting the best of both worlds. But when you get one or the other, they'll normally get to a certain spot, and all different variables take over from that point. But that's definitely a thing.
Hi guys, I'm just going to take a brief break in today's podcast to talk to you about the Adapt online strength and conditioning coaching service. At Adapt, we put the athlete first and make sure that the whole program is set up around them, their goals, their sport, and their lifestyle to achieve the best possible performances. Our aim is to deliver an elite level coaching experience that typically isn't always commercially available if not part of a professional club or performance pathway system. We communicate with our athletes on a weekly and sometimes daily basis, making changes in technique and making alterations to the program based on how you're performing on any given day. We also bring in experts from psychologists, nutritionists and physiotherapists for online educational workshops to make sure we are giving you all the tools necessary to excel in your sport. So if you're looking to take your physicality to the next level and want to invest in yourself, head over to the website at adaptstrength.co.uk for more information, including some success stories of our current athletes, or drop me a message to set up a chat to discuss the options. Hope you're enjoying today's podcast, so let's get back to it. What would you say some of the biggest performance changes you have made over your 14, 15 years of training have been? What have been some of the things that you've kind of implemented or had implemented to you where you've been like, that was a game changer, that unlocked 10%? What were those things?
This is still happening all the time. A lot of, not all, I've had some great coaches around me over the years, but some stuff comes down to, if you want to get better at something, then as we were saying, take the driving seat, put yourself in there and take control of the trip. So if there's something I want to get better at, yeah, I should have a coach that can help me with that, but I'm going to take it into my own accountability to put myself, whether that's like recovery or training methods or things of that nature, you know. But that has changed, and I hope, to be honest, changes every year, because if you kind of get stuck in one thing, then I feel like you're going to plateau. It don't mean that we're going to have to juggle around and change things for the sake of it. If something's working, then it's working. Like, I know my work rate. I'm going to be able to push through a lot of things. But then that, for example, can come counterproductive in the sense of where I'll overtrain. And now I need to understand things like overtraining and recovery, and I need to start delving into this of what's actually going to help that, what's going to help me pull back. But yeah, I'd start again as a teenager. That was solely just work rate. There was no taking into account sleep, nutrition, hydration, rest. None. I didn't care. None of that. It's all gas. There's no breaks. I'm just going for what I need to go for. Fast forward from starting, I'd say about 4 years. We're actually in the gym and we're training on our own. And I'm getting ready for my first title, English title. Again, I'm 17, 18 years old and I'm fighting a 32-year-old home champion. In my head, I need to do absolutely everything that's possible. I'm pushing my body to the limit. And this is a time where I'm eating no carbohydrates. I'm eating 5 salads a day because I think I've watched a bodybuilding thing and it says, don't eat carbs, bro. And I'm like, right, okay, don't eat carbs. My weight comes down, obviously, because I'm probably consuming 700 calories a day, but I'm training 3 times a day. And I end up fainting in the gym and passing out. No idea why at the time. Look at it back now. If you see it on paper, you go, oh, fucking hell, bro. Like, eat something. Yeah. Drink
You've
something.
had 2 leaves today and you're trying to do 5 hours of intense training.
Yeah. Stop drinking coffee, have a glass of water, have some rice, and stop being a dip. But that was one thing where I was like, okay, this is affecting my health now. So I need to start pulling things back. And then you'll change things a little bit. But I'll start at that point, okay, now I start need to implement in more calories, and you start understanding food in, food out, expenditure and things like that. And then that can go down to, so what I see as an overall thing now is you can either survive or you can thrive. So for the longest time, and I'm talking till a year ago, I've survived. But I didn't, in my head, I thought I was doing everything that I could. Whether that's a lapse of judgment or just being lazy in the sense of, I like to come home and eat a cheesecake, I'm going to come home and eat a cheesecake. When it should be, okay, is that really nutritionally dense and going to help anything? No. It's going to satisfy me, and things like that are good for balance, but balance being the key word, not every night, which I was doing. So I'd survive in the sense of I'd put all the work in, but then hydration, rest, and nutrition, I just let the cards fall where they fall, because I wanted to come home and I wanted to eat a cheeseburger and I wanted to not eat all day and then eat everything in the evening. I'd be up till 3 a.m, just scrolling through nonsense, watching YouTube, and I'd wake up 8 a.m, absolutely exhausted. And then I'd hit this barrier where I'm like, don't matter if you're tired, you've got to do the work. When really, just go to bed. Go to bed earlier. Hold yourself accountable. The reason that you're tired this morning is because you've been up since 3 a.m. But at the time, I didn't really put any weight onto those areas. But lately, I've completely changed my whole everything around training's always been my golden ticket that I know I can push through anything. Everything outside has always been not that great, and I just survived through them things. Whereas now I'm like, no, I'm completely changing that round, and I'm putting all my cards onto the table, where I'm now accountable because I'm doing everything I can, or at this moment in time, I know that I can. So I've changed my whole nutrition. So everything now is focused on performing or pulling my weight down, but over a period of time. Like, I've been playing around and tweaking my calories for the last 11 months. So instead of like crash dieting and walking around at a high weight and then pulling myself down, this is like 11 months solid of consistency. Things like sleep, I have to buy technology, whether it's scientifically proven to help or not, it's going to help me hold myself accountable. So I know now how many hours of sleep I'm getting, and I can see, okay, you're not doing it properly. Start having more hours sleep, or get to bed earlier. Make sure your bedtime's right, because you're not falling asleep at the right time, and you do need to be up at 6 anyway. So you've got to, it's all about holding yourself accountable for every part. As a professional athlete, this is. Hold yourself accountable in all those little parts and see where you can progress, and make sure you're progressing in all of them. Don't just go, yeah, but I can get away with 5 hours sleep, because guess what? It'll catch you up. You can't be like, yeah, I can walk around at 10 kilos higher than my fight weight because I've done it for 5 years. It's like, okay, brilliant. You might be able to do that. But how much better would you be able to perform if that was only 5 and you was lighter and you wasn't ballooned up and you was able to just be consistent all the way through? Where's your level then? And you're never going to understand, because you're always at this level of going, I can survive. I can get away with it. I've always done it. And yeah, great one. But that's not helping anyone progress.
Mate, that's the thing as well. Like, everybody at your level, and probably levels all the way down, they're all training hard. Like, everybody's
100%.
training hard. That's the fun stuff. Like, going to the gym and sparring, doing pads, that is the easy shit. The other 23 hours of the day, that's the stuff that you need to be capitalizing on, because it makes up so much of your time, and it's
so much.
It holds such an impact. And and we've spoke about this before, and I think our first few years in combat sports and athletics and all those things, I believe you're successful in spite of those years, not because of those years.
Yeah.
Like, and if we could go back and kind of change a few of those things, who knows where you could be now? Could you have that extra 5%? Could you have that extra little bit?
Yeah.
And it is mad to think about it, because you'll never be able to change the past, but all you can do is kind of think about those things that you did do and make them better now.
Yeah, learn from them. Yeah.
And I reminded you about this story the other day about like less than ideal fight camp prep. And we must have been, I don't know, 17, 18 at the time, just getting into drinking and having a social life and all those things. And well, I'll tell you what, can you remember the Barnsley fight when it was in like a nightclub?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
So we didn't know this was coming up. So we was on back in the day in Grimsby, that's where we're both from. When you go to college, you basically get a thing called EMA, and EMA was basically like government funding. You used to get 30, yeah, it was a beautiful thing. You used to get 30 quid a week if you attended every lesson at college. which was ace because it gave you an incentive to go in and actually turn up. So if you missed your 9 a.m. for whatever reason on a Monday morning, you're like, fuck it, I'm not off. You're not going to the rest of the week. I'm not getting my
the
weight.
whole week's done.
Shit mindset, but whatever. So that 30 quid, back in the day, we'd use that for all the important stuff, the essentials, like, 2-3 litre bottles of cider, get that Frosty Jacks. And you'd go on a night out, you'd go to a party, you're young and you're just trying to just have a good time. And I can remember we went to, I think it would have been a Thursday. I think Thursday was the Cleethorpes night out. So you'd go.
Student night in Cleethorpes,
Student night in Cleethorpes. You'd down a 3 litre bottle of cider. Great. You'd get steaming. You'd wake up Friday. You won't be able to eat anything. And I can remember we both got a similar phone call, like, oh, got a fight on Saturday. Do you want it? It's in Barnsley. And we were both like, I can remember ringing you straight after, like, what are we doing then? What should we do? Well, I'll do it if you do it. Fuck it, let's do it.
Yeah.
Fuck it, we'll do it. And and obviously, mate, I get hangovers. Like, I don't just get hangovers, I get hangovers, capital letters. It's brutal for me. And we went into this fight, and it was like, dingy nightclub type of thing. Basically, I hadn't eaten anything. And I can remember watching your fight and thinking, fuck it, you wouldn't know. That was the thing. That was what kind of made me about that night, is like, I watched yours and I was like, fucking, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. It's just kick the shit out of somebody with a stonking hangover. Yeah. So I'm like, I walk into mine, I'm like, yeah, let's go. And I had a bloke. I had a bloke. And, like the whole fight was pretty much a blur. I have like little snippets where I'm thinking, where I can just remember little bits. And I can remember being laid under this guy, had a hairy chest. And I can remember his corner screaming at him, get him, mad dog, get him.
Get him.
That's
crazy, one of those things that you'll hear when you're in that moment. But
it's like I fully switched off to everything. But, and what's your advice then? It's not going to be, it's common sense what your advice is going to be. Somebody says to you, right, you're taking that fight up, where do you stand with those kind of experiences?
So obviously, if you write that down on paper, your advice. Yeah. You 100% know the advice. But what's interesting and why I find combat sports so unique in themselves is I fought Andy Campsell that day, the guy who I beat for the English title that I was talking about. And that gave me an inkling that I know I can beat that guy. And again, I was, what was we, 17, 18, we'll say 18 for the record, that we was going out drinking. And that gave me an inkling to know I can beat this. And then when the fight came round, that spurred me with confidence that whole fight camp. And I knew that I could take him regardless of age and circumstance and stuff like that. So in hindsight, what on earth are you doing going out, getting hammered, and then accepting a fight for the Saturday? But sometimes you just do what you got to do, and things either work well or sometimes they don't. But when it comes to advice for it, I think, honestly, what I think as an amateur, it pulls me into two. One is understanding what I'm talking about, those building blocks, where you've got somebody and you build them up, and now they're on this platform where they're real mentally confident. And then the other thing is everything at that stage is experience. Like, I wish I had so many more fights as an amateur, but there's nothing I can do about it now. But that's why I insist that the fighters that I coach will just get in and get as much experience as you can, because none of it matters. And like I say, good luck finding an amateur record when you're trying to find somebody as a professional. It doesn't matter. It's all experience. As long as they're confident as an athlete that they can handle themselves in most situations and they're not going to get hurt, and same for the coach, that that they're going to be able to handle that environment, and then you're not putting them into a lion's den, then I think it's all just experience. You take so much away from them. Now, would I do that if my fighter was out drinking heavily till Friday morning and they were competing Saturday? Maybe not. Maybe. But again, I think it's so individual that it comes down to the athlete. If I have a kid who I know can just turn up and perform, I'm going to slap him for drinking on a Thursday night and I'll be like, now go get on with what you need to get on with. But only if I know that the situation is controllable and they're not going to get hurt. If it was not just a random thing and it was like a high level competition and they were getting ready for a ranked opponent or they were looking to take a title or something, then no way, we're not drinking throughout it. Whether it's a detriment or not, the same thing again, we're putting all our cards into play. So alcohol may not have that much of a detrimental effect, but it may mess up your sleep, and the next day you might not have a great training session. You may get injured that training session. What's the point of taking that risk? If you're committing to this and you're committing to the fight, one, you need to have the self-respect enough for yourself to put on a good performance. And the other is, I'm not going to have you represent me if we're doing a half-assed job. One, for the point of that's just what we're not going to run. And two, for the safety of yourself, I want you in your best physical shape, because it's not a game regardless, like you've still got to be dotting your I's and crossing your T's and that.
That's the thing, just going back to what you said there, like your experiences are going to be so impactful for the next generation. Like you're going to be teaching your wins, your losses, the lessons that you've learned along the way. You're going to be carrying those on to the next generation. You're never going to live long enough to make every mistake in the world. So you need to be taking advice of people that have been there, done it. That's the way you're going to help to progress yourself at a faster rate than everybody else. So I want to kind of turn the attention to some of your, I guess, less than ideal preps again. So I'm thinking about, some of the water cut stuff, that type of thing. Give us a little bit of a lowdown on some of the less than good preps you've had.
Yeah. So again, this comes down. There should be a team or an individual inside of your fight camp that understands how to cut weight, because it's incredibly it can be super dangerous. There's no doubt about that. And it's not even something to take lightly, because people have lost their life due to cutting weight and not doing it properly. It's an incredibly dangerous thing that we just do in the sport. And whether you agree with it or not, it's part of it. So we have to understand all the controllables around it. And we should know how to do it as safely as we possibly can. And I didn't start like that at all. My first experience of weight cutting, so before my horror stories, I was getting ready for one of these Sheffield events, and I overheard the older guys in the gym talking about weight cutting. And at this point, nobody was checking our weights. So there's just, you're fighting at 63 kilos. Okay, I don't really own any scales. Oh, I did actually. I owned one of those scales that you step on. It's just a line that goes like that, not digital. You're just guessing. You don't know what's going on. One day it says 65. The next day someone's dropped something on it. It says 62. You're like, you don't know what we're doing. And I overheard somebody talking about water cutting. And to me, in my head, I was like, oh, maybe I'll just do that and then I'll make sure I'm not over. No guidance into anything. I water loaded the day before a weigh-in, got everything out, went to a hot bath, was quite depleted. Came in at like under 3 kilos what I needed to be. So totally not necessary for me to put my body under that strain. The second thing is, I only heard half of their conversation. I heard them talking about getting the water out of your body. I didn't listen to anything about rehydrating. So I'm walking around the town centre with them as you're waiting the intimate, the part between the fight and the competition. There's a wait. You get weighed in, you have a few hours, and then you go compete. So I'm walking around, and then I hear them talk about, oh, how have you rehydrated? How much you drunk? And again, I'm 15 years old, 16 years old, and these guys are maybe 30s, and I'm looking up to them like, what are they on about? And I kind of managed to build up the courage to be like, what do you mean, like, hydrating after a water cut? And it was like, well, you've got to drink water after you've got rid of it all. And I was like, I was like, I did that. And they were like, what? And I was like, yeah. I was like, I didn't know anything and I thought I was going to be overweight. And I was like, well, you need to start drinking. So even at these levels, you have to be aware how influential you can be in part of a gym to a younger thing. So I have juniors ask me about water cut and I dead the conversation straight away. I'm like, not telling you what it is, not telling you how to research it. I'm talking like 11 years old, 12 years old. And I'm like, I'm ending this conversation here because you don't need to know anything about that until the time's there. And then we'll educate you on it. And that's my thing. Because otherwise people will tempt stuff. If they don't need to know, they don't need to know. Otherwise, they're going to be like, oh, what's inside this box? And they start peering through and now they're at a fight tournament, dehydrated a couple of hours before they fight. And it's nonsense. So I think someone should be there advising all that. Now, when it comes down to, even I spent years, and yourself as well, we kind of bounce backwards and forwards on topics all the time, trying to understand weight training and weight cutting and dieting and things like that. And granted, we probably got it off bodybuilding.com and it's not the best place to be, but where else are you going to source information when this is telling you what to do? You're going to think that's the Bible to go to. So I remember one time I was cutting weight for a world championship in Athens. And again, so in England, I became okay with being able to handle my weight cut. So I knew if I was at 70, I knew I would float a kilo in the night, which basically means in that distance, your body will get rid of that water and you wake up a little bit lighter. And then I knew how long it took me to cut the remaining of that weight. Now, flying internationally is a completely different story. When you fly, there's water retention. There's a whole different ball game of things going on to stripping weight off yourself. So I fly at my normal weight. So I'm fighting at 65. Say I'm at 72 at this point. I get on the plane. I expect to be 71. I expect to be able to wake up in the morning at 69 and have 4 kilos to cut. Whether that sounds extreme or not, that's kind of like the basis of what I was doing. And so that was my plan. And I fly. I don't eat anything for the 30 hours or whatever it is that I'm doing, the fasting. So nothing's getting added onto my body, no water. And I wake up in the morning and I'm 71.5 kilos. I'm 2.5 kilos over what I thought I should be. And to put this into perspective, 0.5, you can see at the weekend or a few weeks ago, Charles Oliveira got stripped to the UFC championship for 0.5. That is hard to get off. At that level, when you're depleted, it's absolutely
you can't get any more water off a skeleton.
No, it's insane. Like if you're just doing that day to day, 500, you can go in a sauna for 10 minutes. It's going to come off, but your body is going to cling on to everything and is not going to let you get rid of that water because you're already in a depleted state. So I wake up at 71.5 kilos, and now I have 6.5 kilos to cut within a few hours, which is not advisable to anybody. Disclaimer, don't do it. If you have a professional experienced weight cutter with you and you're a professional athlete, then they'll advise you from there. But anybody who's just on their own, not advisable, don't do it. So I start my weight cut and I'm getting in and out of the bath. And I'm on my own at this point. My coach flies out on the day. So I'm in Athens on my own. And again, don't cut weight on your own. Super ill-advised, dangerous. You fall over, you pass out, which can happen. No one's there to look after you. Horror stories. So I'm jumping in and out of the bath, and my measure of security is I FaceTime yourself and put you on the side to make sure that if anything happens, then at least somebody knows. I don't know what you're going to do, ring the hotel or something, but whatever. And I'm getting in and out of this bath for hours. I think it was like 4 hours. Normally that's a 40-minute process, but this weight just isn't coming off and I've got so much to lose. I'm just going on that all day. I've run out of Epsom salts, which I don't even really believe in now, but at the time it's supposedly supposed to strip more fluid out of your body. But anyway, that's what I was doing at the time. And I went to a pharmacy to go get some more Epsom salts. And at this point I'm gone. I'm in my jumpers so I don't stop sweating. It's 30 degrees outside. Nobody's in jumpers. And I'm asking for these Epsom salts, and they look at me like I'm a drug fiend off the street and just turn me away. And I'm like, man, what am I going to do? So I go back to the bath, in and out of it again for hours. And I get to the point where I'm 65.5. So I have that 0.5 to go. I cannot get in this bath anymore. My body is completely depleted. It's hard for me to stand. I can't taste anything because I've had no water or anything for hours, and I've just sucked everything out of me. I'm just a walking skeleton at this point. So I think, right, jumpers on, sweatsuit. Maybe I'll sweat a little bit more out in the travel. Go to a taxi place. Your first protocol, get the transport there. You're there on your own. I go, hey, mate, I'm going to this arena, show him the address. Can you take me there? He went, yeah, 20 euros. Okay, I'm half dead. I don't know what's going on. I'm just passing money over. He drives me over to this place where there doesn't seem to be much going on around. Tells me, oh, go walk 5 minutes forward, 10 minutes forward, you'll find it. I'm like, okay. And the place is completely deserted. It looks a bit like a desert. There's mountains, there's no shops. You're just walking on like flat, dry dirt. And I'm walking to the point where my body can no longer handle the heat. So if you've ever been somewhere where it's 30 degrees, even in a completely normal state, go put 2 jumpers and a sweatsuit on and walk around and see how long you want that on for. It's not very long.
Might be too hot.
It's too hot.
Might be.
So yeah, I get to this point and I'm in the middle and I turn around and I can't see where I came from. And I look in all directions and there's nothing around. My body just shuts off at this point and I come down to my knees. I start pulling everything off of me. I start to get emotional and I'm crying because I genuinely don't know an out at this point. I have no water on me, which is absolutely ridiculous in itself. But again, nobody's there to advise me. I'm just on my own learning the ropes. I break down on the floor. I have my favourite sunnies on. I take them off and smash them. Gutted afterwards. Don't know why I smashed them, but you do things in state of emotion. And I just lay on the floor, kind of thinking, is this it? Is this where the story ends? I don't know where to go. I cannot bring my body up to walk that way, or that way, and find anywhere. I can't keep moving. So I lay on the floor and I'm just looking up to the sky and I'm like, what fuck? Somehow there's a police officer circulating the area, sees me, drives over, asks me what's going on. I explain the situation to him, half crying, and he tells me the area that I've tried to get to is nowhere near that place where I've been dropped off. Puts me in the back of the car, drives me to the arena, and then I get to the arena and a championship tournament, there's hundreds of people waiting to get weighed in. Everybody's depleted. Everybody wants to get on that scale as quick as they can. I walk in on this police officer's shoulder, drooped in. Everybody turns around, looks at me, and just separates like Moses separated the sea and just goes,
that's what I was thinking there.
You go. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I got on the scale, 64.9, did it. The worst weight cut I've ever had, and I genuinely thought I was going to die. And that first drink that I got after that genuinely felt like a soul was coming back to my body. It was a rough time. But again, that's just from myself. So I never took into account of flying and water retention and things like that. That's where you need a professional to be able to help you, or somebody who's been through that to be able to guide you so you don't end up on a desert floor thinking you're going to die.
Absolutely. I think it's mad, mate. And I can remember that time as well. And, you know, at that point, you just don't know what the options are out there, you know. And I think my kind of takeaways for people that are listening that are potentially involved in combat sports are, yes, absolutely, a sports nutritionist or whatever, it's going to be expensive, right? It's going to
invest in yourself.
That's the thing. It's going to cost you a bit of money on the front end, but you know what? You're going to gain that back for the rest of your life. You're going to know, you know, what you should and you shouldn't do in terms of actual dieting, but also the water cut side of things. Learn it properly at the beginning. It'll last you a lifetime. And I think once you actually experience the other side, once you actually know how well it can be done, you'll never go back to just winging it
Yeah.
and doing it yourself. Invest in a few £100, whatever it costs you now, it'll pay off.
Yeah. And that's what, so I have an academy that I've been working on for the last 2 years. And I'm hoping to launch mid next month. But my original thought point for this, when I was sat down and I was creating it, was for my younger self who maybe needed extra bits and guidance along them way. And like I say, there's great coaches out there, but sometimes if you want a little bit extra, that's what I'm trying to create it for. Is okay, nobody in here has any experience of weight cutting. What are some guidelines that I should look at? Okay, avoid this, look at this. And it's not going to be nowhere near the same level as working and being under the tutelage of somebody who's an expert in that field, but it's going to give you your do's, don'ts, and guide you on a better path that I wish I had when I was younger, running into all these obstacles that just didn't need to be run into.
Yeah. What else are you going to be putting in that academy then? So how's that going to look?
Yeah, so I want it as a whole training platform. So I don't just want it as, the main bulk of it is going to be for kickboxing, Muay Thai, and boxing. So striking, for either striking sports or MMA, and it's going to help you develop your skills, whether it's your countering or your blocking, or you want to be more aggressive or evasive. Things, real skill building is going to be the main portion. But then I want it to branch off into the point where, okay, now I have a fight set and I want to understand what a calorie deficit is. And I want to understand how I can safely start to bring my weight down. So there's going to be a brief part of information that you can understand those concepts and you can start to pull it down a bit. Again, things that I've learned over the time that I wish somebody told me back then, because I would have saved so many years. So you will have your nutrition and strength and conditioning. Again, even from where you're at now, we started doing bodybuilding splits. We'd finish a hard 2-hour session in the gym. We'd go to a pure gym afterwards on a Monday night, and we would superset, because we didn't enjoy training back, we would superset every back exercise we could think of and get it done in half an hour. Now, you turn that on the flip side, we used to love training chest. We'd have a Tuesday, completely dedicated the whole morning to just training chest. Now, was that the best way to go around it? Probably not. But again, that's all we knew. Now, what I want to take is my information and knowing that that's probably not the best way to train. And I've made them mistakes. And now the next person doesn't have to make them. So we're going to have the nutrition. We're going to have the strength and conditioning. And then I want to have a look at your mindset. So I want to look at being able to just create a more bulletproof mind. It's the most important bit, and it's so underlooked. So I want to talk about my experiences and the way that I try and rewire my brain to create an unbreakable mindset, and then I'm going to branch off into things like mobility and all different kinds of stuff. But I want it as if you're involved in combat sports, whether you're a hobbyist or you're looking to compete, it's going to have a platform for absolutely everything. That's kind of the route that I'm taking. So it's a holistic training platform that people can experience from anywhere in the world.
That's sick, mate. That's cool. I think what I like about that is that it's all going to be in one place. You're going to have people, experts that you trust and you've put in that position for the right reasons, because they're good, and you take trust in that. Because like you just said, we were trying to find so much information on YouTube, and you end up all over the place. You know what YouTube's like. You can go down a rabbit hole and just end up bloody in the deep dark web. It's mad. That sounds sick, mate. When are you looking at releasing that?
Within the 3 weeks, I hope. Probably mid June. I'm going to get a date finalized over the next few days, but definitely between the 2nd and 3rd week of June. And as you say, it just kind of there's a million paths that you can go down, as you're saying. You can try and understand this. But the problem is with it, is that if nobody's telling you that bodybuilding split probably isn't the most, the greatest way to get to where you're wanting to be, it can lead you off into different ropes that may hinder you, you know. We've been down them roads, we've been down them paths where it's taken us a bit longer, and we know, or we have a better understanding of how to bring the correct bits together and make it more advantageous for yourself, and you can cut all the crap out. So, you know, I've been here, I've done this worked, rather than you spending 2 years trying to understand what to do for strength and conditioning, and you've just wasted 2 years. It's okay, we've done this, here's the best way to do it. And it's, oh, now you've just got that information, which I just, wish that I had when I was at that age. And that's my, my whole ethos for creating this academy in the first place.
That's cool, mate. That's cool. So what's next for you, mate? What you got coming up?
Next, again, the academy is the one that's coming, but the professional MMA debut finally is where I'm going to next. So most of my time has been spent as a professional kickboxer or Thai boxer, but MMA is something that I've wanted to do for a long time. And it's not just something that I've just delved into randomly, spent a year and been like, oh, this is what I want to do. As you say, originally I started, my first ever interclub home competition was in MMA. And I've always been in and out of jiu-jitsu and wrestling. And it's just something I've always known that I've wanted to go down the route of. But because I spent so much time in kickboxing, there was a few accolades I wanted to tick off. I wanted to become a professional world champion. I wanted to fight for the likes of like the biggest organization in the world, Glory. I wanted to become top ranked in the UK. I ticked all those off, and I was like, now's my time. Now's my time to transition over and hit all those achievements, the same in MMA, you know. So that professional debut is going to be on the 23rd of July in England. So I'm moving out to Asia in the next few weeks. The reason for that is there's a great base in Bali in Indonesia that I'm going to stay at. And for me, I have great coaches here right now, but I need to submerge myself with other athletes that are on the same path to me and is accessible in the sense of I don't need to travel up and down the country. I can just wake up and I'm going to practice every morning, and I'm in a room full of killers that are doing the same thing. It's a time for me to put myself into these hard situations and sacrifice everything and make this push to get to where I want to be for it. So Asia is the next place I'm flying to, and I'll be living in. And just putting myself in that dragon's den to be able to raise that level.
Sick. That sounds great. Might get a tan.
Maybe. I doubt it.
I doubt it, but maybe.
I've spent many time out there, and I've still not got a tan. I burn.
Yeah.
I burn, mate. But
state. Yeah. Love it. Sweet. Cool. Well, thank you very much, Ben. I appreciate you coming on, giving us your time, kind of giving us a little bit of an insight into, what goes on behind the scenes of a professional K1 mixed martial artist. It's been sick. And I know there's going to be a lot of great takeaways for people out there, either involved in combat sports, but, those that are just involved in performance and actually seeing what makes people tick that are doing really, really well.
Yeah. For anyone who's involved in the sport, like if you had to have some takeaways from today, is to hold yourself accountable for the variables outside of training, where it's not nice. If you want to come home and you want to eat, like you can eat whatever, like things in balance, but you probably already know what food you should and shouldn't be eating. Take the accountability for it and make sure that you're responsible for what you're consuming for your nutrition. Look after things like your sleep and your hydration, because they're massive. You may be able to survive training the next day, you may be able to get through, but look to thrive. Get a good coaching system around you. Invest in all those little things that aren't available inside of training. And for some of them could be the Ben Woolliss Academy. But also, if you're doing it as a full-time professional, do seek out things as someone like yourself for a strength and conditioning tailored. There's a difference between getting an understanding and going in depth and having someone work with you. And the same for a nutritionist. If you have the funds and you have the availability to do so, it's going to make life so much easier when you understand these variables. And don't do any stupid weight cuttings or anything.
Sick, mate.
Yeah, that's it.
Nice one. Appreciate that, mate. Thank you very much.
All right, man. No worries. Thanks for having us on. I appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks for listening to the Adapt Performance podcast. Let me know what you thought about the episode by leaving a review or sending me a direct message. I'm all for receiving the honest feedback to make sure the episodes grow and get better and better. Like, share, subscribing and following all goes a long way to making sure the podcast reaches the right people. Thanks a lot. Catch you next time.